We're back at the Shadow Gallery. I'm Mungo. This is
Harley.
How you doing, folks? So we're gonna keep going with our tribute to Image Comics in honor of the 30th year anniversary and the fact that it had a big impact on us as young comic book readers. Part of the reason that we're here today. And Harley, would you say it's part of the reason we're in this amazing
Definitely, yeah.
Valhalla?
Image was very influential as a young lad, and yeah, I would say it shaped much of this shop and myself, yes.
I mean, this wall of graphic novels behind me, we could do a whole series just going through and talking about all of the amazing artists and writers. We're going to focus on Image Comics and 1992, 1994, like in that era. That was the range that I really got into comics, and it seems like you too.
Yeah, that's when it roped me in strongly. I was like 91 was like when I got this big box of comics from my older brother's friend for a Christmas present one year, and it was just like it was over after that.
Never been the same since.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a couple things I want to talk about that we kind of missed. One of the things was we talked. You had been mentioning how Erik Larsen writing Savage Dragon and hitting 300 is like such a huge milestone. And in previous conversations, I brought up that Todd McFarlane has the Guinness record for longest running creator-owned series. So nothing about whether he was the artist or the writer, just that it's his series, he's the creator. Yeah. So that's what his claim to fame was. And here's the crazy thing that we didn't mention, which is Cerebus. The record was held by Dave Sim, who did 300 issues of Cerebus. So before Spawn was ever penciled, I'm pretty sure Cerebus had already wrapped its 300 issue arc. So Dave Sim's Cerebus, I felt bad that we didn't mention that's what it was.
That's the OG.
Creator-owned book.
And if anything, Todd was trying to have at least a little bit of a thing on Dave Sim or something. I don't know, but like, yeah.
Todd McFarlane, he kind of reminds me of like one of my uncles or someone from an older generation. He kind of like, talks shit a little bit.
Yes, he does.
And so when he was like patting himself on the back,
but he can talk shit. He's a fucking whatever. Like, he's a badass and he knows it. So like, yeah.
But now I see that he was specifically talking to Dave Larsen in the interview when he said, "I'm just going to keep making books. I hit 301 first, and I'm going to keep going. So if you're at 299 when I'm at 300, you're never going to catch me because I'm just going to keep doing them until the day I die, and I work out or like some shit like that." So like now I realize that was directly at Erik Larsen, who's like they both launched their #1 a week apart from each other or something.
Very close. Yeah. So. Yeah,
so
definitely.
We showed you the inside of this book, and the reason I brought it last time in the first place was just because this is a really cool story written by Dave Sim, and if you don't know about Cerebus, people should check it out. And then the other thing I felt bad about was not talking about the Maxx. So this copy of Altered Image has a pretty cool spread on the back here. We'll start out by giving you a look at some of this artwork. We've got some art on the cover, on the back of this, that we'll show you in detail. What could you say about the Maxx? Maybe it wasn't something in your pull list per se, but...
I always loved Sam Keith. Like, I mean, that little bit of Marvel Comics Presents that he did with Cyber and whatnot, that's a classic little run. And I don't know, I love his style. For whatever reason, whenever it was coming out, though, it was not, like, what grabbed me. Like, looking back, I'm like, dumbass, because, he could have been out on the ground floor or whatever, but, like, it has the MTV animated series that's just, like, so cool.
Yeah.
And it's actually, like, really, like, almost just like a kind of a frame-for-frame, almost Sin City style, like, we're gonna take this as almost like storyboards for the cartoon. Like,
that's
we're
what
gonna
you
just
want
like
to see. Yeah.
And I like that. A lot of people are kind of like, well, you're just watching it like in a moving, and I'm like, is that wrong? Like, what's wrong with that? I'm okay with it just being a straight adaptation.
I guess the one knock on that is part of the beauty of comics in the first place. We were talking about how much of a visual medium it is.
Yeah.
And it's like you get to fill in the blanks. That's kind of what's so cool about it, you know, and you're kind of you're getting those key frames, and then you're animating it with your imagination.
Yeah.
And so that's my memory of the Maxx, was just the art was so cool. And like I think he had these gangly teeth, like in it. Just having a costume that breaks your expectation of reality, like, then there's no more expectation for the rest of the story. Anything can happen.
Yeah, it was well, and his art style was completely different than everybody else at that time. Like, it was still extreme in its own way, but it was definitely not like, you know, gigantic pouches, or not gigantic, you know, shoulder pads and pouches and, you know, cybernetic arms and shit.
Yeah, and then also this the story like had like different realities. It was like you would go into a different universe when you went into the where those little creatures were, and there was always some sort of like black ink that was of darkness surrounding everything. Like, had a lot of cool stuff. So anyway, I brought in this altered image. It's pretty cool just because it's Spawn, Witchblade, Savage Dragon, Shadowhawk, Majestic, and the Maxx all into one crazy mashup. These were some real throwaway stories where they actually just took the trouble to put all of the characters into one story, you know?
Yeah, that's generally what happens whenever it's a crossover, because like there's no stakes, you know. Like,
good point.
If we're gonna you know, throw everybody into a big gumbo together, we're not gonna do something that's actually gonna affect the lengthy storyline. Sometimes they do, though. Sometimes they do whenever it's like, I don't know,
Civil War or something like that.
Yeah, but that's a company as opposed to like a bunch of independent guys going like, hey, let's do a thing. Because I mean, generally, I don't think that they existed in the same universe. Well, at that point in time, maybe they did. And every once in a while, you'd have like a character pop up, because obviously, like, they had Savage Dragon and like Shadowhawk.
Yeah.
And trying to remember what other like actual crossovers. And Pitt was in Maxx. That was
another one that I felt remiss that we didn't discuss.
Yeah.
So tell me about Dale Keown. What did he do before the Pitt?
Well, he was on the Hulk famously before that, and there's some indie comics that he did. I can't remember what the name of it was, and I really love the art whenever I saw it, but like I can't remember it. It was something we can add in post, everyone.
Yeah, because the Pitt in the Hulk, there's a great image that I've seen, maybe even in Wizard magazine, where they have side by side his drawing of the Hulk, his drawing of the Pitt, or of Pitt, P-I-T-T, Pitt. And then the thing about Pitt was it was basically Hulk with no nose.
Hulk with no nose and like big pointy teeth, yeah, and rocker hair, and like, you know, a leather jacket.
Oh, totally. So like you were saying, like the coolness of, like, you know, Ghost Rider with the leather jacket and playing into that kind of punk rock aesthetic.
Yeah, the Crow has already started to like trickle its seeds into pop culture, even if it was just in like comic form. And like, well, I guess 9 Inch Nails had already started to get popular, and try to think of other like darker aspects that was like creeping up in the early 90s. Like, well, like you said, Ghost Rider, but like the other parts of pop culture that were kind of enhancing that effect.
I mean, yeah, I guess it was before the grunge era, so there really was like were groups like Danzig
and like
already a thing? Like
Danzig was around.
Yeah.
Let's see. Fucking The Cult. Remember the band The Cult?
Oh man. I did that whole era of see, it was post glam rock, and that's when it actually was, you know, the height of the Satanic Panic. You had all kinds of bands like Slayer and all that stuff.
Well, they're playing it up for like Alice Cooper style shit, but in '80s fashion, like Venom or any of those like metal bands that are like Satan. It's like, yeah, you're gonna get like 1 million cameras on you whenever you're like doing that shit. So
right.
Yeah.
Well, you're bringing to mind Evil Ernie. I feel like Evil Ernie was like, if Alice Cooper walked into a comic, he might have been Evil Ernie.
Exactly, dude. That's that's actually an OG. That was probably around in '92, like the beginning, like the early or Evil Ernie. That's kind of got me curious now.
Okay, so as we move forward, let's keep rocking and rolling, and we're gonna dive into some more books. While I've got these books out here, I'd just like to point out this is this back cover here, Savage Dragon number 50, is the ad on the back, and that's just some really epic Erik Larsen art right there. And then you'll notice that these covers are penciled by Valentino and then inked by Erik Larsen. That's what I assume here. And then another cool thing about this is this got all this fan art. So this is Wizard Contest runner-up. So Wizard ran this this image art contest, so you can see who the popular characters were. We've got Darkness, and then look at this, Dark Violator, Nightfall. It's like some sort of amalgam. Wizard was really partnered up with Amalgam Comics and always talking about these kind of crossover ideas.
Oh yeah, the splicey dudes.
Right, so
Dark
Claw. So maybe a combination between.
Yeah, I think there's
Predator.
like Darkness characters and like, or the Darkness. That's what's going on, right? Is it like combination Darkness with like other properties or something?
It says please check inside cover for details. They're probably talking about in the front. Yes, it looks like every single one of these is somehow relating to Darkness. So here's Kabuki Angel. It may just be in general things.
Okay.
We've got Kiss Ninja Turtles.
Rad.
Kiss the Next Mutation. So,
yeah, well, Turtles were with Image for a hot minute there, so that would make sense.
So it's just random mashups. And then there you go. I just want to shout out Jim Valentino again here with another original with this cartoony Savage Dragon crossover with his character.
Interesting.
I think just because we didn't show off much of his art or talk about him very much.
Yeah. He's definitely he's one of the OGs for sure.
And he's someone who stayed with. That was the other thing that I felt bad for not mentioning. He's the one guy who stayed in as an editor at Image Comics to this day. So Jim Valentino, he's still over there when you're pitching books. Robert Kirkman has been added to the fold over there, and Jim Valentino's still there.
Yeah.
So this is just another, this kind of funny crossover event that's tongue in cheek. It's kind of a joke, but kind of cool.
Yep. Yeah. I was kind of in the waning days of Image for me at this point for me, but
you can tell by the price, right? So by the time comics were $2.50, we were well towards the end of the 90s at that point.
Yeah.
And the price of comics has just continued to go up and up.
Yep. What are they, like $4 each now usually? Something like that.
So I'm going to slide us. Look, here we go. This is Countdown to Wizard number 2000. What is that? June 1999. So they were counting down until the year 2000, because we all know that hitting that millennium was a big thing. And Image continued to be in the pages of Wizard magazine. I wanted to bring this out because we talked a little bit about the next generation and kind of what happened with you were referring to it as second generation books.
Oh yeah, like, the next generation of Image guys, where it was J. Scott Campbell, what is that, Humberto Ramos, and Joe Madureira. I think it's Madureira.
There's the
Joe
second
Mad.
R in there. You're saying right. Everyone calls him Joe Mad for short, but Madureira. And then this is about Chris Bachalo joining the Cliffhanger gang. So that's a pretty awesome lineup for artists.
Yeah, definitely, the same kind of situation with Image. Like, they're just poaching all of Marvel's best dudes. Or actually, well, I wouldn't even say Marvel, because Humberto Ramos was, I think, Flash before, or something like that, Impulse. I can't remember what he was getting popular from.
I think I know him most from his book he did, Crimson. And
that was the
so
thing. But yeah, his origins were were the big boys.
I know him most for that, and I remember seeing some cool characters.
But I guess J. Scott Campbell was just entirely Image, but
yeah,
Gen
and so he might have come onto
then,
Gen 13 and done so well. So this is just another great example of these artists getting to have their own
Joe Mad
books.
took off on XMen. First off of that Deadpool miniseries. I love that Deadpool miniseries, man. That's the one. That's the stuff. Yeah. That's why he was able to take off as a character, in my opinion.
Right.
To be honest, I love Rob Liefeld. I love his particular part of what he had on X-Force and New Mutants for that little teeny bit or whatever. But no, man, that was that was where people were able to kind of this got something here
for Joe Madureira.
Yeah.
And for me, some of that,
it was that manga
X-Men
style, dude. That was what made the that character be able to jump from just kind of sort of a SpiderMan with guns to a whole different person.
And I would say that my first Wizard was Wizard number 49 that I picked up from you, and I actually made a video about that, and I touched on the feature article that they had on Joe Mad in there. I think he was on Uncanny X-Men at the time, and there's this picture of him doing pencils on a character called Marrow that he just made me fall in love with pencils. I don't know if I had seen such exquisite pencils in my life, because usually you're seeing the completed book. You don't get to see the pencils along the way. So I remember seeing Joe Mad's pencils and thinking, that is a fucking artist. And okay, J. Scott Campbell, his book, Danger Girl. So when he actually got to really make his mark was with his own creator-owned title, Danger Girl. Pretty cool. Really typical. You look at the facial features there, and you can see how he really fused the cartoony aspect, and it was all kind of about spies. We've got Humberto Ramos had Crimson, which was kind of more leaning into vampires and that kind of
teenage vampire kind of thing. Yeah.
And then
he had that chunky graffiti style you were talking about, digging with the big feet, big hands. Yeah.
Exaggerated curves on everything, and never a smooth curve. Always a little jagged edge to everything. That's kind of what the way you do. That's why it's graffiti lettering, right? Goes out of their way to pop out of a corner. And then Battle Chasers was Joe Mad's, which is again, if you were just following an artist around, you would follow him over to Battle Chasers, and he stayed true.
And then you're okay, well, that was a cool comic. How long for the next one? Oh, okay.
And this was,
but I mean, I can't talk, dude. I can't draw for shit. So yeah.
Well, and then you can see that the creator-owned thing, it's like a romantic idea, but it's really, you're taking on a lot to be the creator, the writer, the artist, and at the very least, maybe you're the editor. Even if you're bringing on other writers, you're still having to be your own editor.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, Cliffhanger, that is definitely worth remembering. We already talked about Top Cow.
Definitely,
We talked about awesome
notable
entertainment.
aspect of the the image tapestry.
And then here we go. Here's Wizard again. Has another nod for image here. This is Wildstorm, right? So this is Jim Lee's imprint
we
there.
got? Oh, we got Gen 13 Fantastic Four.
They've got news on all of these. Yeah, so they've got little shouts out. Wild Times. Wildstorm celebrates its first 5th week event in June. There was a really cool thing that I might have brought with me. This one right here, Fire from Heaven. Fire from Heaven was like the first big image crossover crisis type event, and you can tell how beat up this is. I don't even have it in a sleeve because it's like it's already been so beat up. But this is also some early J. Scott Campbell. So this is before Danger Girl.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of really cool splash pages. Like that's a lot of what people think of when they think of image, was these kind of like, this is not quite a 2-page spread, but you know, it's got these panels here. It also takes you've got these other characters that I really like. Grifter from Wildcats in there.
Notable, image dudes of that era. I don't recognize these green people though, so I don't think that they lasted very much. Maybe they were the part of the.
I do recognize this guy from Gen 13. He's got the 3rd arm on his back. He
yeah, that was a cool one.
And actually, we find out in this is the cool issue where we find out that this is actually Fairchild's dad.
Yeah.
So there's this whole
I think it was like the
father
Team
scene.
7 thing, right? It was like all the different like people that were, well, a lot of Gen 13's parents were in Team 7, which was like kind of a group of like powered special ops dudes, I think, or
yeah. And so this is like the moment where we realize that, where it's like and the whole, here's your Team 7 folks, Death Blow from Team 7, and there's actually, this all like leads up to a big, cosmic event that they're trying to stop the destruction of. And
I just found out. Well,
here we go. Here's the 2 generations, the older generation and the new generation. But we didn't really know that they were actually blood relatives until this issue. So anyway, this was a fun one.
So this was the issue.
This is where this is the moment. You're my dad. So the foreshadowing, folks, it finally comes out.
Wow.
And there's a cool shot. And then again, this is like your typical J. Scott Campbell. I have no problem admiring the craftsmanship and his style with
I have to admit that is a little awkward though, to have like so much ass shown in like this touching scene of like father and daughter.
Well, so that's where he gets his reputation from, right? Oh my gosh.
It's like, oh my god.
You know what?
I don't know, dude.
Good call. Do we really need to see his tear falling on his cheek? Wouldn't it be better to see the cheek falling on, not those cheeks.
Sorry.
Yeah, we could.
I don't know. Just the artist in me is like, just cut it off there, J. Scott. Do we really gotta fucking go down there?
Don't be shy of the female form,
I know, but also, goddamn thong and the outfit. But it is the late '90s. Yeah.
It was almost like there wasn't a second thought, and then if you were like a young man reading comics, like you'd hardly even bat an eye.
I know, exactly. And at this point in time, I was
there
probably like, yeah.
No, but that's kind of the problem, right? It's kind of like, that's the problem with like porn and smutty stuff, is it can kind of like desensitize you to the allure and the eroticism that could be there, because you're just putting the TNA in your face all the time.
To be honest, like at this point in time, I had a Gen 13 shirt. I don't even remember what. Like, it might have even been a later issue than this, with like Fairchild's on the cover, and she's like, you know, got her arms behind her head, and she's looking at you very erotically, and like some girl like was complaining about it in high school, and like wanted
she was ahead of her time.
Like me freaking, you know, complaining about it, and I'm like, damn, dude, chill out.
Yeah, well, I feel like our era of high school was like when there was a certain amount of awareness just starting. You know,
yeah.
As far as that kind of stuff went,
I suppose I understand that, but like, I don't know, man. Like back then, I was like definitely, you know, the term woke was not around, but I was like, you know, don't put your wokeness on my body.
Well, you know what? The funny thing is, I was just talking about this the other day. At that point, just talking about LGB was pretty big because everyone had just talked about,
well,
you know, I mean, hey, gay this, gay that, and then like, that was like the
there's
gay
like
straight
Will
alliance.
and Grace or whatever, but like there was just Will and Grace, and there was only that kind of gay person. Like there was only like the flamboyant gay person. Like that's the only.
To the younger folks, we should just make a note that like that it took a bit of a fight to get people even aware of the fact that there was L, B, and G before and trans was not even talked about at all.
Yeah.
This is way back. This is like 2000s when we were in high school, right?
Yes. This is ancient tomes.
Yes. So hey, I'm all for awareness, but I have no shame in liking what I like. And one thing I didn't like is notice this huge shift in the artwork here. We go from J. Scott Campbell artwork to a fill-in artist for the last 2 pages here. So these are these last 2 pages where we find out that the moon's coming towards Earth, dramatic scene. But I remember being young and just seeing this grunge here. Like his scale is all off.
Like, who is
grunge
this?
is supposed to be like the little guy. He's like he's supposed to be the same height as her, but they kind of made him look super big and buff. Anyway, I decided to throw this in because
interesting.
I really like this was the first like image event, big crossover event.
Do they credit that individual?
Let's find out.
No, I'm just very curious because that is like
pretty obvious,
incredibly obvious. And might as well. We're
digging deep.
We're investigators here. Oh, they do. And he had other pages too.
So the 9 through 11, we could try and hunt down those pages. Yeah, so it always bothered me.
Yeah, we're artists. Let's talk about the arts as well, man.
Yeah, so it always bothered me. I can see it right here. I opened up right to it. I can see the difference.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And it's you know, it's the subtlety.
That's okay.
It's like the way that people did their shading.
And actually,
and they would try their best to match. I mean, I've had people even ask me, "Hey,
I see, you know, he's doing his own thing, but like, I don't even know if he was necessarily trying to replicate."
There's some aspects that you can see that are pretty similar in the way that they're doing the faces, but J. Scott Campbell a lot more angular and almost less realism. So it's hard to put your finger on it when you become so acquainted to comic book style and a certain artist.
This is very stylized.
Yeah, very chiseled here, and you know, you kind of accept it because you believe in the world that you're in.
Yeah, he's got the Art Adams thing going on where like it's cartoony, but it's also very detailed and like, I don't know, representative, and like, as I think I was talking about earlier, like, you know, it's cartoony, but it's creating its own like world. And you know, Jack Kirby did the same thing, where it was like, it might not necessarily look like a human it really looks, but like, he's just made this whole thing his own. And like even the cloud drawn by Jack Kirby looks like a Kirby cloud, or like Arthur Adams the same way. You know, I don't know if you could say the same about, you know, J. Scott Campbell with cloud being drawn by them and be like, oh, that's a cloud drawn by them. But like, there's certain people, or like Mike Mignola. You know,
right?
I could probably point out a Mignola cloud.
Yeah, there's well, the other thing that you're making me think of is there's a kind of suspension of disbelief, meaning you know that some of these things aren't real. You know these are 2D images. You're not actually in 3D space. These are flat, as flat can be. And any illusion of depth is an illusion. And in order to get really invested into the world, you have to kind of believe it. And that's why all these artists have what I call shorthand. And you can see that the way that they're doing the edges, well, if you want to like make a surface seem more interesting, it's going to be catching more shadows as you get to the outside of it. So these like little tick marks that seem kind of random, you'll see how uniform they are in an artist like J. Scott Campbell. Whereas we could pull open, you know, Greg Capullo on Spawn, and those little shadows, or tick marks as I call them, that's pretty realistic, true to realism, but they're going to be more random and almost more realistic in that artist style. These are all very uniform.
Yeah.
And it's a shorthand where we know this is a certain texture that's on this metal versus a certain texture on this shirt. And the way you're doing the little hatching is really going to communicate that, right?
Yeah.
The shadow here on his costume versus the shadow on his face, you know, we're going to get we're going to get that texture by the way they're using their lines.
That's definitely.
This is a great example because you've got the shiny metal surface next to the spandex, next to the skin, and they all have a different texture.
Yeah, they all have a different little, you know, hatcher dude. Yeah, you got the solid chunky blacks for the you know, the whatever spandexy type material. I'm sure that's supposed to be. And then you get a little bit more of the, I don't know,
the reflective nature of the metal.
Yeah, and catching, well, I'm assuming that that's meant to be like almost like a reflection of something.
If you're going down the highway and you're behind like some big you know, tanker, you're going to see that kind of reflection in the chrome, or whatever, you know, whatever the deepest part of the shadow is a reflection, and it's going to be like that. It's going to be kind of wavy.
Yep. That's another one that I don't know, I always struggle with still, is that like reflecty texture, because I'm always like just wanting to even hatch on like metal stuff too, but like I can you know still get away with it, but it's one of those ones that I'm just like, I want to get that one in my bag, but like I still haven't gotten comfortable with it enough to like just bust it out, you know, on the random whenever I'm doing
and you can
something.
see, this is another kind of, this is from Wetworks, right? This guy's basically chrome plated gold guy.
Yeah.
And you can see inside on his arm and on this shoulder, I'll hold this up a little closer, you know, those little lines is a shorthand to say that there is like a big bright light reflecting off of that
and
spot.
and then the colorist goes in and enhances that much more. So
and this is actually pretty nice here, because this shows the same thing that you're seeing, is you're getting two light sources, right? So all the shadows are on this bottom side, but then the colorist went ahead and really brought out the reason that we have a second edge sometimes is because there's a reflected light that's coming from a different direction. And so, you know, the penciler and the inker have created that illusion, and that's why the colorist can just pop that extra color in there so easily. And again, these are different artists handle this in different ways, but in real life, there's rarely one light source. So any good artist is going to leave places where you can have that secondary reflected light. If you sit down and what I recommend for artists is like draw driftwood, draw rocks, draw anything, you're going to observe that right away. There's always a second source of light like bouncing off the table into your subject.
Absolutely. Yep. Definitely an aspect of life drawing stuff that is pretty, I don't know, pretty important. And
yeah. Back to the characters here. So Gen 13, I always thought of them as like 90210, and because I'm pretty sure that was the same era, like 1990, 91. We were seeing that, like, it was kind of like the teen heartthrob era. You had a lot of that in the pop culture. And the other that's how small grunge is.
Trying to figure out why Rainmaker is grabbing her boobs right there. That's kind of like, what's happening right now?
See, I love that, like, and she's doing the same kind of sultry pose, and they're like, it's like, here's the grown-ups lining up for their mugshot, and this is like how cheeky these kids are. They're like pouting their lips and squeezing their boobs at the camera.
Gotcha.
Because they're just such naughty, rebellious kids.
I see. That's what's happening.
But you can see how naughty, rebellious.
Oh, yes, and Fairchild's being all coy.
Little demure look in her eye. Like, yeah. They're all being kind of... I mean, that's the funny thing. Like, doing the whole naughty teen, rebellious teen thing turns into teen sexuality, which is totally what it's like to be a teenager, but it's also grown men, mostly grown straight men, mostly grown straight white men, trying to imagine what it's like to be a teenager, right?
Yeah. Yep. But, you know, we were eating it up back then, and I was right there with you with this issue. And like I said, I had the apparel to match. I'm trying to remember the name of the, like, freaking... the spot that I grabbed all those shirts from, but I was like,
there you go. There's a little bit more for you.
Ah, yep, Chiodo.
That's how far it could go.
Definitely.
Okay, and then while we're in this world, we already talked about the Wildcats, but I thought we'd actually look inside. So this is some Jim Lee type stuff. So there we go again.
Zealot.
Going right for the babes here, just to show that this was indicative of the time.
Part and parcel of the whole process. It's still part of the process. I don't know. Like, if anything, I feel maybe it was a little bit more egregious back in the 90s, though. Like, I mean, there is absolutely nothing going on there.
This, you have to turn the entire book in order to get her legs in your face like this. And then also, remember we were just saying this shorthand of what does it look like when there's a little light reflecting in a spot. You know, so it's that same spiral or circular shading technique. And then also, also indicative of this era of Image was these huge splash pages. I thought we should show, like, Maul here with his arms outstretched, kind of cool foreshortening there.
Yep, that's a great one. I definitely love drawing that particular hand with the little curled.
The fingers are coming at you, but also flattened in a way, so like we're not getting that second bend in the knuckles.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like that's an Arthur Adams hand, but like
less realistic, but
it's probably
gives you the angle.
Probably Kirby too, but for whatever reason, that's just so. Well, talking about like Jim Lee's definitely an Arthur Adams follower.
And then Grifter here, I'm thinking of his mask and thinking of characters like Deadpool and Spawn, and so again it's like someone that people like to look down upon. Rob Liefeld is the creator of Deadpool, and there's so many parts of the aesthetic to his characters that really stand out. And here we could close this and maybe show you a little bit more.
I'm gonna just flip through and see if there's any other juicy bits here.
Well, while I was on that point, I was gonna bring this up. So, what was indicative of the era? So this is pretty funny. So, what does Wizard say here? Baggage check. You can see all of the guns, all of the pouches, all of the ammunition. Is this a parody or is this actually from an X-Force? I think this was actually in those pages.
Yeah, I believe he was just grabbing guns to like get ready to go fuck some shit up though. Like,
so I'll give Rob Liefeld both.
And I'll
give
Capullo,
him
right?
This one on
that
this
image,
artwork.
I'm pretty sure is Greg Capullo. Yeah.
Yeah, you can see the tiny ankles. You can see an overabundance of weapons, pouches, kit and caboodle, and then with Grifter, I was saying that was a great example of. The truth is, it probably goes back to SpiderMan, and in the idea of the mask with the big eyes. SpiderMan is probably the originator of the full facial mask.
Yeah, Grifter always had squinties though. Like, I mean,
That's true too.
I mean, it was a very, he could still express even through his squintiness, but he'd sometimes be less squinty when he was being, I don't know, humorous or whatever.
Well, and then his mask kind of like hung like a bandana, but it did have the same thing that I think I noticed in Spawn, and then his hair was out too, so you can see how it kind of had the best of both worlds.
Yeah, he's got a Gambit thing going on with the hair and the trench coat. Like,
yeah,
they needed hit their Wildcats stand-in for Gambit.
Right.
They had their Cyclops sort of, and then they had their Wolverines sort of, and their Psylocke. Or maybe they're Psylocke. I don't know.
Well, okay, and this is Jim Lee, and so he's coming off of drawing those characters. This is obviously your Cyclops, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then your
Storm.
Colossus.
Yeah.
So maybe, yeah, Storm, Psylocke.
Yeah, and then, okay, while we're at it, I just, while we're talking about Jim Lee here, I picked this up not because I thought this was really great, but this is... Maybe we could kind of think about what happened towards this era where we have Heroes Reborn and we have the Image guys going back to Marvel.
Yep.
So tell me about that. So I know that Rob Liefeld ends up doing Captain America. There's a very iconic Rob Liefeld Captain America drawing. You know the one I'm talking about?
I probably do, because, man, that era was just not comfortable for me, and I was definitely very much on the Liefeld haterade train at that point in time. And I still can't, necessarily extol his virtues, but, he is, he is who he is, and his art is what it is. And I still love it. I still love the man. Because the man is almost kind of just a great enthusiastic force for comics. Whether or not his stuff is amazingly virtuosic in its artistry or whatever, he's still got so much heart for comics that that's why I love him. And that's why anyway, I'm gonna go ahead, and that's why that's my foreword, because that Captain America was garbage. So
so he ends up back on Captain America. Actually, we have this is some Jim Lee Captain America there.
Yeah.
And maybe we have here's a Liefeld Captain America.
That's him. Yeah, that's the.
Okay, so we're getting a combo art piece here, because we're definitely getting the Fantastic Four Jim Lee.
Yeah,
and then it's being mashed up with this Heroes Reborn. There's a Liefeld Thor.
Liefeld Thor and Iron Man.
So we've got Heroes Reborn for Iron Man.
Oh, so yeah,
Jim Lee back on X-Men.
Yeah, I didn't even remember that he was up in the Avengers biz as well. But
so what would we say? This was an attempt to kind of get these guys back onto Marvel, and did Marvel need a kickstart at that point?
Yeah, dude, everybody did. Well, they had kind of they had blown their wad with I think that was around the same time that they jacked up their distribution or whatever.
Oh,
when they bought Heroes World, and it was yeah, it was. I can't remember the details of it. They were acting Ed and Jim were going off about it on a thing a while ago.
It came down to the behind the scenes. There's distribution deals getting.
Yeah, well, Marvel just kind of went a little too far in, in the late '90s, after the speculation shit just went crazy, and people were super people were definitely getting into comics, but they kind of doubled down and were thinking that the gravy train was going to be riding a lot longer than it was.
We didn't talk about that much, but that's a big part of the Image story. Was the speculation, people trying to buy up multiple copies of issues, distributors not being able to print enough because people were buying comics. It's kind of like there was 40 years plus of people buying comics, and some of them being so valuable because they were part of the golden age, and they were so rare. Yeah. So in order to fill the demand for people who wanted rare comics, they printed more. Is that a good summation?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird that like it's like, you know, printing money or something, or, you know, you're going to like try to create this false value to this thing. And I mean, they'll just have like, you know, a bunch of different like, well, characters getting introduced that you don't give a shit about just because it could be somebody's first appearance that you don't know about, that's going to be hot in a minute, or whatever. Yeah. So there's like new characters being introduced back and forth that you could give two shits about, and there is #1 issues for people coming out that you're like, what? This guy's got his own comic? He barely had an appearance. Annex? Who the hell is this? Like, I literally had that. I don't know. It must have been the art. I don't know why I bought that. I was like going through my boxes just the other day and came across one of those like #1s from that time period. And I was just like, what got my addled little kid mind to buy this, dude? Like, damn it.
Right. Well, it's making me think, just, you know, here we are with, you know, Jim Lee's cover to Wizard number 67 here in the back, and it's Iron Man and Ben Grimm, and it's just making me think that, like, yeah, it's like you treating your iconic characters like a cash cow, because you have such a long history and a legacy. People really care about these characters, and so to give too many books to too many subpar characters kind of waters it down, and that was why we're talking about Heroes Reborn having to happen, because they'd kind of lost some trust with their fans, right?
Yeah, well, and a lot of well, I really think that, you know, at this point in time, like, I think Marvel would realize that like sticking with like a lengthy continuity was like not gonna work, and I feel like DC had come around to the same realization, even though I feel like they try to have a thing that is like the standard or whatever. I don't know if Marvel does anymore. I think they do have a universe or whatever, but like there's so many multiverse shit things happening now that like any like standard continuity that like comics had for a very long time, like, you know, all of Marvel Universe and all of DC Universe like was like coinciding with each other, or at least like trying to, in like an editorial sense, so like, you know, books would be able to like link into each other properly.
It's another one of those suspending disbelief things, because in real life people age, and things that happen in your past always happened in your past. You can never like wipe the slate clean. So if you're, you know, the same age for 40 years of comics, and you've had all of these experiences, and they all have to have actually happened in your life, you run into a wall at a certain point, and that's why we see the reboot. That's why we see times where they have to start over with #1, because or the thing that other people are complaining about these days is someone else picks up the mantle of the character. Meaning it only makes sense to kind of introduce a new person to be the superhero, and the story of that superhero can continue with a new human in the position. Yes, it only makes sense if you want to have
continue the storyline. Yeah, that's actually something that I didn't know that. Well, I'm telling on myself, and I was reading like Savage Dragon 225 just because like I was kind of downloading comics, and this one was like a large file size, and I was like, why is this so big? And it's because it was a like 100-pager. It was like a giant sized issue, and I was like, oh, that's cool. So, you know, for the novelty of it, I was like, I'm going to read that one. Just, like, out of the blue, whatever. And it's kind of crazy because, like, I think I stopped reading Savage Dragon when I was reading it at probably issue 16, 17 or something. So to see 200 pages or 200 issues of, like, storyline later for that comic, because Savage Dragon, like, Eric Larson's actually trying to make some shit happen with that. And so, like, the dragon that's in that is, like, the dragon from Before's son. And I'm like, what? What? Holy crap, dude. I need to read the rest of this shit. So, like, that you got me, Eric. Well done, man. Right. 20 fucking years later, like, you got me.
I bet you. So maybe while we were talking about this, we could flip through and just, you know, more of what was happening in this era. Because let's see. Let's find out what year this came out. We'll notice that editor-in-chief is Joe Quesada. So Joe Quesada has kind of been brought in to be editor-in-chief for all these years, right?
Well, Joe Quesada, I don't know if he was editor-in-chief during this particular tenure,
or just when
they made this trade.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
But it wasn't long after that, and he was actually very influential in getting Marvel to the place where they are now,
right?
And bringing them out of the darkness. And I would say that, yeah, probably Heroes Reborn was an element of also that, in that, like, yeah, we're, you know, you recognized our worth. We're going to come back to your company now, bring you back from the brink, and sell a lot of books, and make some cool art, and, you know, it's telling the same story again or whatever, but, like, with the Jim Lee stamp on it, it's cool. Like, he did the same thing years later on Batman, and everybody juiced their drawers about it. And that's cool.
It is kind of mind-blowing. I know, you know, Jim Lee's so iconic with X-Men, then on to Image, and then to be doing Batman. It is kind of mind-blowing. Because there's a certain sensibility to the way they're telling the stories just by the artist alone, right? And I think you can see that. I wanted to show here just because we end up having Black Panther. So this is before the Marvel movies, and introducing Black Panther into this storyline was pretty cool. And he's also bringing along Brandon Choi and Scott Williams for the inks.
Hell yeah, those are his dudes, though. I mean, he's got his consigliaries at this point, man. Like, he knows the people that are gonna make the work good and make, you know, the books come out on time, probably. So, yeah.
Yeah. And we've got Wildstorm Effects Richard Starkin's computer colors, which is pretty cool. So, yeah.
Yep. At this point in time, they got the coloring game on point. Much different than his run on even, like, XMen, you know, like 3 years earlier or something, 3 or 4 years earlier.
Fantastic Four is one of Stan Lee's original creations, right? Did that?
Fantastic Four?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like the big one that kind of kicked off the Marvel universe as we know it. Like, they existed as what? Like, the company was Timely before it became Marvel, which, like, they put out Captain America and, like, Submariner and Marvel Comics, which had, like, the original Human Torch and stuff like that.
Right, and that's why.
But yeah, the first, like, Marvel book was Fantastic Four.
That's why I think this is really cool that they rebooted this, and I'm really glad that I have, like, this whole collection to go through.
Yeah, it's a
all.
good trade, man, and. Yeah, it's a cool exploration of the storyline and the characters.
And
Yeah.
I had the Wizard article up right there that had the battle between Darkseid, and when we think about like who the like most iconic villains are, so Doctor Doom, it's like it becomes such a big part of the whole Fantastic Four lore.
Yeah, and he's even extended into hip hop as you know, the basis for MF Doom's kind of iconography and whatnot.
Oh gosh, yeah, there's such a cool story behind that mask, MF Doom's mask.
Yeah, that's I didn't notice it until I rewatched it. It's like the Gladiator Mask, man. Did you know that, right?
Well, I remember hearing about them going to the metalsmith who made it, and them making the request, and yeah, I think that's what they asked for. Mm-hmm. But he ended up coming up with his own creation. Like,
oh yeah, yeah. It's like tweaked out a little differently, but like I just watched like Gladiator, probably like, I don't know,
we're aging ourselves.
Few months before freaking MF Doom died.
Uh-huh.
And I was just like, what? Oh my god, how did I not make that connection?
Yeah.
Yet? I mean, how have I not seen Gladiator since, you know, whenever I picked up MF Doom, which was probably like, you know,
that's one of those movies that's way
like
older than we think it is, because it was so big when that movie hit.
Yeah, and I definitely burnt it the fuck out. Like, I watched it way too much whenever it came out. So,
are you
like,
not entertained? That's my favorite meme of all time.
Yes. Dude, oh shit, it's not here. No!
You have a
no, I got something. I gotta.
Well, gosh, and then Silver Surfer. I mean, I love the cosmic nature of these fantastic. Well, and the Fantastic Four got their powers in space, so there's always been a cosmic element.
No, the funny thing that I wanted to show was on my phone. One of my folders for like apps is "Are you not entertained?"
Don't we all want to be entertained?
Because like it's just got where I like, you know, have YouTube and Voodoo and all the shit. So just the fact that you brought that up was hilarious, and I thought it would be a fun thing to like throw under the camera, but like my phone is not in my pocket.
I also think that Fantastic Four, they have had real disservice with the movies, you know, and I think it's part of the fact that when Marvel had all their troubles, like we were saying, probably right around the Heroes Reborn days, it was when they gave up all the rights to make movies to Sony. Mm-hmm. So the reason that we didn't see SpiderMan and we didn't see the X-Men or Fantastic Four in these MCU movies is because they gave up the rights.
yeah, they sold the rights to other media companies, like Fox had Fantastic Four and X-Men for a while, well, until Disney just bought them. And oh my god, have you seen trailer 3 for Doctor Strange yet?
No, I don't watch trailers.
Fuck. Okay.
I like to be really surprised.
Well, God.
Okay, some trailers I die for, like other trailers I stay away from. I go straight into the movie blind.
Well,
you can tell me. Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm
I'm
not shy of it.
Well, this one finally, like, they've given you like a little bit of juice with like the Doctor Strange shit before, but this is like the full fucking like steak. Well, of trailers. I was just like,
okay, you're still teasing me, Harley. You're teasing me.
No, it's there, dude.
They bring them in. They bring the
they're
Fantastic
fucking
Four.
There. Fantastic Four and X-Men in the fucking trailer. Not even like.
So that's
playing
what this whole,
the fucking round with it, dude.
Yeah.
I was like, you guys, you aren't even like trying to fucking like just breadcrumb us. Like, you just say, yes. I'm glad.
Comic fans are the ones who like are paying attention to this sort of thing, and know what the stakes are and who these characters are. they're not going to mess around with the general public. It's going to be hard enough for them to accept this multiverse of madness that they're getting thrown into.
Yes.
So I can understand they're trying to recoup, like, because I feel like Fantastic Four's last movie did not go over very well.
Yeah, Fantastic Four and X-Men both kind of were crap. Like the Dark Phoenix movie, oof, that was harsh. I mean, sorry, Sophie. Like,
there's some.
I don't want to crap on you because that was like kind of your vehicle or whatever, but like, sorry, it was not working.
I think that it's easy to have a little sentimentality for like the original X films, you know, at least the first X-Men film. But we also, that's where in the comics we saw,
dude,
I saw a whole other universe.
Okay. X-Men 1 and 2, whew, the third X-Men movie of that thing was horrifying.
Right.
And there's a terrible anecdote to go along with that I should probably even have in video. I'm going to see what page we can be on while I talk about that. Oh, here we go. Let's have this nice Wolverine image.
Yeah. Perfect.
Because X-Men 3, I left the house with my girlfriend, and we left our dog in the backyard, and we went to go see X-Men, and then we came back, and our dog was gone. This, like, beautiful, like, corgi mix dog that we'd adopted, and was, like, the sweetest damn thing. So, not only did we, like, go to the worst X-Men movie ever made, until Dark Phoenix was made.
So you probably have a better memory of X-Men 3. Is that the one where they're in New York and there's a Statue of Liberty scene with Magneto? There's some, like...
That's the first one, right?
Is it? Or maybe that's X2.
X2 is the one with the, like, dam. And
okay. I've got them jumbled up.
X-Men 3 is the one with, like, where it's the first Dark Phoenix one with Famke Johnson, and then it's got Vinnie Jones as the Juggernaut, and he actually says, "I'm Juggernaut, bitch!"
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
And all of
I jumbled
and it's
them
got
up.
Angel in it, like
right.
Ben Foster playing Angel. I love you, Ben, also, but that's another one that I...
Well, there was
one.
Something about the way that they did the costumes, where they put them all in black leather, and this idea that we're going to make them seem like they're in the real world.
Yes.
And that was kind of a miss in a lot of ways. It was so sleek and sterile in a way. Like,
yeah, I can understand that, but I mean, to be honest, like the MCU stuff does that kind of as well. Like, all of their costumes are definitely not like Marvel comic costumes. Like, even WandaVision kind of played that up. Like, you know. Or did you check out WandaVision?
Yeah, a little bit.
Well,
yeah.
What I'm talking about is on WandaVision, like they've got these costumes that they're very much like, you know, what like a 70s Marvel production would have looked like. The spandex is very actual spandex, as opposed to these kind of like cool, like fucking you know,
we can find some of that here
carbon
too.
Fiber.
Well, Mr.
Shit
Fantastic has to have it, just to point that out.
Yeah.
He needs some special cloth.
But I mean, say like Wolverine's brown costume right here that they're showing.
That's a classic.
Like, if you actually showed somebody in this getup, like literally a human being with a brown and yellow leotard on and a belt, you would die laughing.
I think even Alex Ross points out, though, that in those early days of comics, spandex hadn't even been invented. So as much as the artist interpretation is to show every bulge of every muscle, we know that this was actually a cloth and they weren't actually running around wearing spandex leotards. It may look like it, but
yeah,
if
whatever
you cut
it
this out of
is,
cloth in real life, I can see what you mean, though.
Yeah. What is
you have to bridge the gap
material?
somehow? You have to bridge the gap.
What is this magical thing that is covering this person? But also, yes, what is this magical covering going to be when we try to turn this into a movie? And
you're reminding
without
me,
making it look totally god awful, like, so
There's a great nod to that in the movie Incredibles, right? Where is that? They go to Irma. And she's
yeah.
Darling, oh, you're gonna look incredible. Anyway, they have the same thing to deal with Elastigirl. She needs a special fabric. And then what do we do for a character who can turn into flames? Are they going to be completely stark naked as soon as they turn off their their abilities? So, okay, the X-Men, not so good. The Fantastic Four movie, same thing.
Oh, terrible.
And then, oh my gosh.
Dude, I love, that's where we're having some difficulties because, like, I love the X-Men movies, all of them, except for, the Dark Phoenix one was the only one that was, like, kind of crap for me. And the X-Men Origins Wolverine.
I was going to say.
That one was, like, garbage.
There's what's the Wolverine versus Sabretooth one. They don't really fit in the same chronology either. They're like, it's kind of its own standalone.
Yeah, well,
oh my god, fucking Logan is fucking
oh my god,
so good.
I love Logan. Yeah, that one's just like super depression fest. It's like their version of like, Marvel's Schindler's List or something. Like, goddamn.
Yeah.
Like, gonna.
Okay, so X-Men and then we might say the ones that were not. Somehow, I guess what we're also saying is that the way that they pulled off this MCU rollout has been better than the way other Marvel characters were treated under the 20th Century Fox. I think that the original first 3 SpiderMan movies are pretty fun.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm just so stoked to circle back around to that, like,
Multiverse.
gushing about the multiverse because, that trailer just, like, I was like, oh my god, you're just showing all your freaking cards right now, kind of. But not really, but, like, damn. Because, like, they waited until the movie was out to, drop about Toby and fucking, what's his face, Andrew Garfield. But I mean, there was still some secrets to be had in the film, and like Daredevil popped up too. But like,
so there's a Daredevil, and okay, that's the other thing we'll have to wait and see is what happens with all of the
Netflix
television stuff.
They're supposed to be like getting ported over. Actually, it might be just Canada.
Interesting. Yeah, that's why everyone's online.
Territories.
Everyone's rewatching Daredevil now because they don't know what's going to happen. They didn't say the same thing about Iron Fist. I mean, I like Jessica Jones. That's what got it all started, right? And then Daredevil came out. And
no. Daredevil was the start.
Okay, Daredevil, and then
Jessica Jones,
then Luke Cage, then Iron Fist,
and then they had Defenders.
And so that was a really great run, and it kind of stood alone, and that's why I was like, Marvel was killing it not just with the movies, but they're also killing it with the TV adaptations.
Yeah.
What about Silver Surfer? How's he been treated? Like your John and Jane American, have they been introduced to Silver Surfer?
I don't think they have been properly introduced to Silver Surfer. I think, the
Herald of
Galactus. I never watched those other Fantastic Four movies because nothing about them in any form made me think that they were going to represent them properly, and I don't know.
Silver Surfer's kind of a tricky one,
and I heard that Galactus was a cloud or something. So it's like, what is that? You can have you're not gonna have a gigantic cool ass guy with big ass, I don't know, spikes on his head.
Well, if anything, he should have popped up in Infinity War. So, like, that was the one thing from Infinity Gauntlet that we didn't get. Like, my favorite part of Infinity War was or Infinity Gauntlet, whatever you want to call it, when he has to face off with all of the different gods of all faiths, and then they actually like unveil the origins of our universe and the Celestials, the Watchers. All of these like powerful beings are not enough to stop whoever has the Infinity Gauntlet, whoever has all those Infinity Stones.
Yeah, yeah. It's well, it was definitely the beginnings of, well, what became one of the biggest cinematic offerings of we have ever had. And
I know that's why I can't talk shit about it, because I will definitely I'll hear from my kids about it. They love it. They love it. And no, but I think I had my son read the Infinity Gauntlet, the entire thing. It's it's several hundred pages long.
Yeah.
And then it's got Adam Warlock as a key figure, and they kind of swapped Doctor Strange in for Adam Warlock's part of the whole story. So you can compare them to a certain degree, but obviously MCU and what we got in the comics is
yeah.
different.
I'm stoked though. I'm really happy that everything's like under a banner now, even if it's the Disney banner. I don't care, whatever. Like, I've just wanted X-Men and Fantastic Four and Spider-Man and all those dudes to be able to play in the same sandbox. And
so Fantastic Four is being brought into the fold. I'm looking forward to that.
yeah, dude, they're the freaking OGs. Like, people might think that they're lesser or whatever, because, I don't know, for whatever reason, they don't, like, stand out particularly strongly on their own.
We could go on, and we may have to shout out some more of these other Image titles that most folks probably haven't heard of. But that'll have to be for another day.
Digging the art here, though. Aaron Weissenfeld.
And then, just so that I can throw some more Image books on the screen before we wrap up here, we've got some other iconic Image characters.
Ripclaw.
This will be another video where we go ahead and we talk about Image Comics. It's hard to believe 30 years, and I throw Brett Booth in here because he's someone whose art I really like today and helped get me into comics. And it's really funny because these characters and these costumes, they're built off of such a legacy of comics. Like, you've got this character with guns. You didn't have many character with guns until some of those, I don't know, since someone like Punisher came along. Like yeah. Batman had guns, and then they tried to get away from that. And I think life and death has always been part of being a hero. But how do you be a hero without becoming a vigilante and becoming a villain yourself? It's kind of one of the plot lines that runs through comics in general.
Yeah, definitely. It's a wishy-washy one, and sometimes you wonder how these particular shells are coming out of this barrel.
Aha! Is that automatic, semi-automatic?
Like, where is this?
But no worries about this energy blast with the Kirby crackle coming out of his hand.
Oh yeah, I mean that's obvious, and it's also kind of a lovely shade of pink.
Yeah. But I do think that there's like a common thread, so that's why I think it's okay that we're jumping around a bit.
Let's see if I have anything interesting to add to the pile here. Yeah, I don't even know. Yeah, well, I got my issue of Wildcats. I don't know if we popped that open or not. But might as well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I just threw Ripclaw up here. So Ripclaw ended up with his own series.
Yeah, so this is early on in the cycle. Definitely very, typical Jim Lee business. Got the, he's always got the cool ass ships. His tech was very, very rounded, very, I don't know, sleek.
One thing about drawing, spacecrafts, it's really fun to play, like, is this a ship or is this a gun? Because there's like so many times when I try and draw a spaceship, it ends up just looking like a flying gun. This looks like very familiar.
Oh,
so
yeah,
we already went through this but I can see that there's a difference in the color.
Weird. Oh yes, there was a trade.
I had the
We were
trade.
just looking
The
at
trade.
that.
Well, the trade had issue 2 in it.
Derp.
Well, while I've got the Brett Booth here, so this is Wildcat 0.
Oh.
Okay, so this is why it fits in really nicely with what we're talking about. Brett Booth, online, he does this demon puppy, and one thing that he does a lot of is he'll put up lots of pencils, and then other people will ink them, and I really think that's cool. I would love to do that myself. If I could put up some pencils and have someone else ink it, I would think that would be a great thing to see. And I'd also like to do I think maybe, I'm not sure if I'm a penciler and inker at this point, because all I do is my own pencils and my own inks. So it'd be really cool to maybe try it sometime. Go ahead and grab some of Brett Booth's pencils and see. I don't know, Harley. Am I a penciler or an inker? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know
That's
if
such
I
a
can
weird
choose.
thing to. Yeah, I don't even know if that actually is a distinction anymore, because so many people do their own both, and sometimes even color their own shit at this point. But I mean, because I have a hard time relinquishing anything to anybody. So
yeah.
And also, I am not necessarily super comfortable going over the top of somebody else's stuff either. So I'm a lot more comfortable doing that than somebody going over my stuff, though. So I think I could be an inker more than I could have somebody pencil or ink my pencils.
Yeah,
at this
and
point.
I've gone back and forth with digital inking. I don't like that I lose a bit of control, so I end up doing a lot of undo. Whereas when the whole point or part of the process of inking is that once you lay it down, you live with it.
Yeah.
And you're very meticulous and you're very precise. And then I don't have that control when I do it digitally, it just takes me forever because I end up redoing the lines.
Yeah, man. I am right there with you because I'm trying to work on this issue of that Walter comic with Jesse, and I've been working on it for years now, literally. And a lot of it has to do with trying to jump into that digital space as opposed to like drawing on a piece of paper. Because I mean,
yeah,
it started out with pencils, and I scan the pencils in and ink on the computer, but that was the first time that I'd really done that at all. Like,
I only
that was
wanted
my
to
first
do that.
time to even mess with the technology.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was like sink or swim kind of a thing. And yeah, I don't know. Like I would say I'm pretty well versed doing it now, but like as something that I would want to like continuously do, especially now that I know, and now that Jesse knows the proper steps in order to scan inks in and do the inks like from actual inks as opposed to like digital inks, because it was like literally just the whole turning it into like the checkerboard, quote unquote,
right,
aspect of it that was like making it difficult for him to like get around just doing inks with just the inks, like actual inks.
Yeah, and so this is 1993, so this was still an era. Everyone's inking by hand, but we're heavy into the digital coloring.
Yeah.
So I think Brett Booth, I think his stuff would be really fun to ink, because it's what I was calling before is kind of like the soft touch to like everything. I don't want to say it feels light, but you don't have very many solid blacks. You have a really subtle indications of where the shadow core is, and then lots of reflective light like you're seeing there. But maybe not as as tight as Jim Lee, but it does have some good energy to it.
Oh yeah. I mean, this was definitely one of the dudes in the Jim Lee school, so to speak. Like, I wouldn't necessarily say he was like trying to totally ape him or anything, but like very much
Well, you end up with artists who grew up. So just so you're saying, Jim Lee might have been grown up reading Art Adams, looking at Art Adams. You've got an artist who might have been reading Jim Lee's X-Men.
Absolutely, and then they're like stoked on it.
They're
just
doing
like,
the characters.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's exactly the situation. And, you know, more power to Jim Lee to be like, yeah, recognizing that, yeah, these people have, you know, similar characteristics to my art style, and we're going to bring them into the fold.
You're
and
in.
Get you helping me make these books on time. So, yeah.
Here we are right back to where we started.
Some zealot. Regulating.
Oh, that is a very iconic image right there.
Got the voodoo.
I've definitely seen that pulled out and like put in other solicitations to like, you know, sell other books alongside it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they definitely enjoyed having those kind of like, I don't know, pin-up type pages with the one big character.
Okay, so there you go. I just wanted to make sure that we got to Brett Booth because we didn't last time. There's more for Image stuff that we're not going to be able to talk about. I did want to. We did bring in Team 7 and Wetworks before, so just so you know, these books exist, folks. I think moving forward, we should definitely do talking about films, talking about games, and I think Image Comics is going to come up a lot if we're just talking about the things that we love, the things that we're into.
Yeah, and yeah, they're, like you said, very very influential in the landscape that we have found ourselves in today.
All right, so we'll wrap up here, and we'll be back with another episode in the future.
Later, y'all.